Meshulam Yedidya Gottlieb Kuratin, otherwise known as Reb Shilem or Reb Shilem Disner, because he came from the city of Disna. He was the head chayzer by the Rebbe Rashab, and he was a mashpia in Tebchet Mimim and Lubavitch. We'll first go through his history in short, and then a few Gishmake stories. Reb Shilem was raised in a very simple home. His parents were not extremely makpid on mitzvahs. They were not an extremely Haredish family. And before he became bar mitzvah, his father passed away, and him and his mother moved into one of his brother's homes, which was very wealthy. And in his brother's home, they sent him into a secular school. Since he was a very talented boy, a very smart boy, he excelled in his learning. After a while, his sister invited him to her home. And when he was in his sister's home, she convinced him, together with her husband, Rebbe Yisrael, which was a Lubavitch chassid, that he should travel to Lubavitch to learn in Tebchet Mimim. When he came to Lubavitch, the Tebchet Mimim was in the summer of Tafrei Samech Aleph. He was still dressed like a student in a secular school. He still had his shiny hat with the logo of the school on it, and he wanted to get accepted to yeshiva. In the beginning, the mashpia, Reb Shmuel Greinam, didn't want to accept him. And Reb Shilem cried and begged, and eventually they accepted him. First, he learned in the branch of the yeshiva in Horodich, which was ran by Reb Shlomo Zalman Havlin. He had a very good head, and he was a big masmid, and after a few years, he became the chayzer by the Rebbe Rashab. He very much wanted to uproot the secular studies that he learned in his youth, and he did many things to try to uproot that. For an example, whenever he wanted to write a letter, even though he knew how to write by himself in Russian, but he would ask someone else to write the address in Russian for him. After Shavuos Tafrei Samachei, he got married to his wife, Guta Bela, the daughter of Reb Menachem Mendel Hilovitz, the Rav of Zhembin. After his marriage, he stayed in Lubavitch and served as the mashpia in Tebchet Mimim. In the winter of Tafrei Shayin Beis, he became the mashgiach and the head mashpia. In Tafrei Shayin Ches, during the First World War, Reb Shilem also went on a whole trip as a shadar for the yeshiva to collect money for Tebchet Mimim. In Tafrei Shayin Tes, the yeshiva, and together with the yeshiva, Reb Shilem and his family moved to Kremenchuk. Reb Shilem was a big oived. He would learn a lot of chassidus and daven ba'avodah. On Shabbos, he would daven the whole entire day. And on Motzei Shabbos, he would learn nigla the whole night. Reb Shilem passed away at a young age from a sickness in his lungs. It was on Shabbos Parshas Shoftim, Hey Elul Tafrei Shayin Tes, and he was only 34 years at the time. Rabbi Yudel Chitrik, which was a Tamim in Lubavitch, he relates like this, that for Chodesh Tishrei Tafrei Shayin Ches, the Fidik Rebbe wanted that the Tmimim that were still in Lubavitch should spend Tishrei in Rostov, where the Rebbe Rashab was at the time. So he sent 1,000 ruble to Reb Shilem, which was in Lubavitch with the Talmidim, to sponsor the trip for the Talmidim. At that time, in Lubavitch there were 100 Talmidim, so Reb Shilem gave 10 ruble to each bachur to sponsor his train ride to Rostov. There was one Talmid that, instead of using the money to buy a train ticket, he bought for himself shoes and boots, and he stayed home for Tishrei. After Tishrei, when everybody returned to yeshiva, there was a fabrengen, and in the fabrengen, Reb Shilem told that bacher, "I'm not upset about the fact that you used the money for shoes and boots. I'm sure you needed them. But what I am upset about is the fact that you probably spent a lot of time debating in your head whether you should travel to the Rebbe or travel home. And you probably spent a lot of time thinking about whether you should travel with new shoes or with old shoes, which shoes you should buy. What upsets me, what pains me is that a Tamim like you, what his head should be busy with is about such things." And Yutes Kislev Tafrei Shayin Daled, Reb Shilem celebrated in Lubavitch the bris for his second son. So Reb Shaul Brook related that in the Yutes Kislev Fabrengen that happened that evening, somebody in the yeshiva wished Reb Shilem Mazel Tov on the bris that he had that morning. So Reb Shilem told him back, "Why are you mixing personal inyanim, personal matters, in the middle of a Yutes Kislev Fabrengen?" So actually for that bris, they wanted to call their son Shneur Zaman. But then suddenly Reb Shilem started to doubt that. And he said that I'm afraid to give my son the Alter Rebbe's name, the Alter Rebbe's Heilige name. So he didn't cancel the decision. They just decided that they would call him Shneur Zalman officially after his wife's Elter Zayda, Reb Zalman Kurnitzer. But then they found out that Reb Zalman Kurnitzer was actually named not Shneur Zalman, but Meshulam Zalman. And Reb Shilem himself, his name is Meshulam. He can't call his son the same name as him. So therefore they were forced to just call him Shneur Zalman after the Alter Rebbe. Once, Reb Shilem's mother-in-law stayed in his home for Rosh Hashanah in Lubavitch. And she noticed that during the day on Rosh Hashanah, Reb Shilem took a nap. So he lay down to nap. So she wondered, Reb Shilem, on Rosh Hashanah, if you go to sleep, it says that your mazel will sleep. So he answered her, your mazel can't get any sleepier than not having koyach for the Rebbe's mimer. In other words, the reason why he took a nap is because he was a chayzer and didn't want to miss any word from the Rebbe's mimer. So he took a nap for that. Rabbi Yochanan Gordon relates that when he learned in Lubavitch, so the famous Ovid, Reb Shimshon Vitebsker, passed away. And it was because he wasn't very careful with his health. He did a lot of iskafia and he davened the whole day. So in that period of time, right after Reb Shimshon Vitebsker passed away, so Reb Shilem and one of the Fabrengens demanded from one of his Talmidim that he should devote himself more to Avodah. So the student, the Talmid, answered Reb Shilem, what do you want, that I should forget about myself and pass away like Shimshon? So Reb Shilem answered him, it's better to die like a Yid than to live like a Goy. Reb Shlomo Chaim Kesselman relates that there was a Talmid in the yeshiva in Lubavitch named Reb Gershon Simpson, Reb Elia Simpson's brother. And this Reb Gershon was told by his doctor that he needs to take a walk in the fresh air every day outside. So this Reb Gershon was a big masmid, and he had a hard time giving up on any learning time to take a walk outside. So at the end, he decided that during the Shir Tanya, he will take a walk. Why? Because he knew the Tanya already, Baal Peh. He already knew it very well. So he figured that, that's the thing that I know about Peh already. I might as well skip that one to take a walk. But he didn't want to make the decision on his own. So he asked Reb Shilem, the Mashpia. And Reb Shilem told him, no, take a walk any other time, but don't miss the Tanya Shir. So Reb Gershon didn't understand why. I mean, he knows Tanya already. So he decided to ask his brother, Reb Elia Simpson, that when he goes in to the Rebbe Rashab for a Chazara, because he was one of the Chazidim, that he should ask the Rebbe Rashab about it. So when Reb Elia Simpson asked the Rebbe Rashab about it, and he told the Rebbe Rashab what Reb Shilem said, not to miss the Tanya Shir, so the Rebbe Rashab said, Shilem is gerecht, Shilem is gerecht, Shilem is right. And the Rebbe Rashab explained, because learning Tanya is not just for the sake of knowledge. It's for the sake of the actual learning of Tanya. So even if you know it already, it's important to go to the Shir Tanya. Another story that Shaul Brook related, and he said once, when I was in Lubavitch, I learned with my Chavrusa the Hemshech of Samach to Samach, Taf Reish Nun Zayin. And Reb Shilem approached me and my Chavrusa, and he asked us, why does the Rebbe bring a certain topic in the Maimer? So we answered that this topic, Take, is not negia to the main point of the Maimer, but since the Rebbe mentioned a certain detail in the Maimer, and this topic explains it, so it's more like to explain that detail. So Reb Shilem was very taken aback by our answer, and he told us, what, you want to say that the Rebbe's Maimer is Chas v'Shalom like a Purim Kiddush? A Purim Kiddush means that when people on Purim want to make a joke and they make like a funny Kiddush, they connect different psukim. For example, they say, Yoyim Hashishi v'chula shemayim esaprim kevoidoi mole oilam, etc., etc. So it was like, he was telling them what do you think? The Rebbe's Maimer is, he starts off with one topic and he wanders off to other topics? No. Every single detail that's brought in the Maimer is here only to explain the main nekuda of the Maimer. On the winter of Tafrei Samaches, a fire broke out in Lubavitch, and all the Talmidim ran to go and draw water to extinguish the fire. The Rebbe Rashab and Fidik Rebbe came to the yeshiva, and they watched what's happening, and they noticed that the Talmidim, they were breaking the ceiling of the yeshiva and the walls where the fire caught on, and then they noticed that Reb Shilem was in his corner, in his middle of Ma'ariv, and it was in the middle of Kriyas Shema of Ma'ariv, and he didn't notice at all the noise and all the fire. So the Rebbe Rashab told the Fidik Rebbe, for such Tmimim, I founded Temchet Tmimim. Rabbi Yoel Kahn relates that Reb Shilem once was misbeinen during Shema Yisrael about Achdus Hashem. And his misbeinenus was so deep until naturally he cried out the words of Baruch Shem Kevod Malchus L'Olam Va'ed out loud. Even though he's supposed to say them quietly, he just called it out loud. And that went on for 4 times in a row, for half an hour. For half an hour was misbeinen, and 4 times he called out Baruch Shem Kevod Malchus L'Olam Va'ed. One of the Tmimim, in Tebchet Tmimim, his name was Reb Moshe Knopov. And he relates that in Tafresh Ayin Daled, when him and his friends finished a year of learning in Ishtzadrin, which was the branch for the younger boys in Tebchet Tmimim, so me and my friends asked the Anhala in Tebchet Tmimim in Lubavitch if we could finally move to Lubavitch. So the Anhala in Lubavitch sent a mashgiach in Nigle and a mashgiach in Chassidus to come and test us to see if we were ready to move on to the next level in Lubavitch. So Reb Shilem was sent to test us in Chassidus. So he surprised us with the following question, and he asked us, imagine a Yid is traveling on a wagon, and suddenly a bad thought comes to his mind, a machshava zara. But at the same time, a wagon with goyim is approaching, and they're screaming at him. And he's stuck. On one hand, he has to get rid of the machshava zara. On the other hand, he has to think about how to get rid of this goyim that are approaching him. What should he do? So this Reb Moshe says that one of my chaverim started to give a whole long speech about that this Yid has to be me'orer his natural yira, which will awaken his avotivis, and that will awaken his yira elah, and on until Reb Shilem stopped him and said, this whole Megillah, you could say over here, but that Yid only has some seconds. How is he going to get rid of this machshava zara? So my other friend started to give his explanations, and Reb Shilem wasn't happy. Then he turned to me, says Reb Moshe, and to my mazel, Hashem put in my head the following thought. I remembered learning in a mimer that there's something called the reshimu, meaning the leftover impression from davening throughout the day. That when a person has inspiration by davening, then throughout the day he could have moments of inspiration when he remembers the inspiration of the davening. So I told Reb Shilem that what this guy should do is he should just tune into the memory of inspiration that he has from davening, and that should save him from the machshava zara. And Reb Shilem liked it, and we were accepted to come to Lubavitch. Once, by a certain Farbrengen, Reb Shilem rebuked a few bachrim harshly about something. Afterwards, the Rebbe Rashab called him, and he told him, any Talmud that you don't cry about him by Krish Moshe Alamita, don't rebuke him by Farbrengens. Bechol Dvarkin related. But once, Reb Shilem, by a certain Farbrengen, where Reb Michal was there, he once said by that Farbrengen that everyone are able to understand Achdus Hashem. So I really wondered about that, and I thought it was an extreme thing to say, that everybody's able to understand Achdus Hashem. So I entered him in a sharp way, and a whole tumult broke out. And exactly at that moment, the Rebbe Rashab came to the Farbrengen, and the Rebbe Rashab asked, what's the tumult all about? So I said that Reb Shilem said that everyone is able to understand Achdus Hashem. So the Rebbe Rashab said that Shilem is right. So I asked the Rebbe, says Reb Michal Dvarkin, I'm a businessman and I live in Petersburg, which is a Goyish city. How can a person like me understand Achdus Hashem? So the Rebbe Rashab answered through his Hisbonenus about Ashgocha Pratis. Once at a different opportunity, the Rebbe Rashab said, everyone are able to understand Achdus Hashem. It's just by some people it's more in a grobe way, and by some people it's more in a refined way, in an edele way. And he said, Shilem has an edele hasaga. Shilem understands it in a edele, in a refined way. So everybody looked towards Shilem. So the Rebbe Rashab made an unhappy face and he said, don't turn him into a getchke. Rebbe Avraham Ayar related that during Reb Shilem's levaya, the Bachrim noticed that the old mashpia, Reb Shmuel Greinam, was walking behind the bed, and he was mumbling to himself, he was saying something quietly. So they came close to listening to what Reb Shmuel Greinam was saying to himself, and they heard him saying, 16 years he served the Eibishter. They were very impressed because Reb Shmuel Greinam was known to be somebody who was very careful with the words. He didn't just spare words for free. After the levaya, they asked Reb Greinam, what does he think about Reb Shilem? And his answer was, Shilem served the Eibishter like a lion. We'll finish off with a Geshmake Nigun Isvaidus.